Are we good on audio? Cool. I want to first start off by saying thank you to all the event coordinators that have helped make this day a reality. It's super fun to have an in-person event. You can forget about the blessing of human connection with all this stuff. So it's just great to be back with people, a community that cares about crypto. That's awesome. Secondly, I want to give a massive shout out to everyone tuning in online. I think we already got 80, 90, 100 people. A really cool community tuning in today to kind of learn about some of the stuff we're going to be announcing. I also want to give a specific shout out in advance to everyone a part of Shade Protocol. So we're going to be talking about with this special announcement. We got Dalton, Austin, Kyle, Jack, Jeremy, Ranger online, a little bit of anonymity. You've helped so much with the economics of all this stuff. Pixie as well with some of the graphics. We've had a marketing retainer that has stayed completely anonymous, and they've done incredible branding work for us. I think it's awesome that we can have people contribute with privacy and contribute to these larger projects. Guy Garcia, Mohammed, Roman, and anyone I missed, thank you for being part of this moment and all of the hard work. So go ahead and begin. A little bit about myself. My name's Carter Woetzel. I am the lead researcher and economist for Shade Protocol. And Shade Protocol is an array of connected, privacy-preserving, decentralized applications. And the product we're going to be talking about today is Silk, which is it's a currency that is an index of other currencies. It's a stable coin, and it maintains its peg algorithmically. And on top of it all, it has privacy, and we're going to talk about the significance of that. But before we begin, I want to start with Bitcoin, because the journey today, I've learned so much from all the different speakers, so shout out to every single person that contributed. This whole journey that has brought us to where we are today started in 1982 with David Cham. A lot of people think it was 2009. It was actually a professor in Berkeley that outlined every single component of blockchain except proof of work. And then that brought us obviously to 2009 with Satoshi. And the original vision for Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And to date, Bitcoin has done that phenomenally. We have seen disruption in a way that we'll look back on, and the writing was always on the wall. Next slide. So what makes Bitcoin so valuable? Before we can talk about stablecoins, before we can talk about things that are complementary to Bitcoin, we need to understand the fundamental properties that made this all happen in the first place. First off is consensus. It's a beautiful fact that we have this permissionless system. Anyone in the world can spin up a node, connect to Bitcoin, and be a part of this economy of currency. The trustless mechanics with mathematics, cryptography, it's decentralized, it's censorship resistant, it's open source, and it's immutable. Bitcoin's seen great adoption in terms of unique addresses. These are people that are actively using Bitcoin. We've seen huge amount of growth with this, with actual usage. We've also seen crazy amount of transactions as well on a daily basis. This is the future of currency. And with it, we'll also bring other generations of valuable currencies. And talking about value, value equals scarcity plus desiredness. This is Austrian economics. And Bitcoin has nailed the scarcity component of value. No other currency out there does like Bitcoin. But when we talk about desiredness, there are still properties out there, because Bitcoin is very specialized at what it does with its scarcity use case, that there is room for other complementary things. Specifically, we'll be talking about stablecoins. Now, once again, scarcity, nailed it. Bitcoin's durable, it's portable, it's recognizable. It's an amazing store of value. And we'll see how the store of value narrative plays out over the course of the next 100, 200 years. It'll be very interesting. Right now, it seems like an incredible store of value because price has always gone up. And that's phenomenal. Scarcity says that it should continue to hopefully do so. But there's two things that Bitcoin is somewhat lacking in. And the first one I'm going to talk about briefly is fungibility. It's one of the original kind of promises of cryptocurrency, which is similar to the US dollar, fungibility. I should be able to hand you a currency, and it's not specifically attached to you. You don't care how you receive the $1 bill or who it comes from. If it's a dollar and it's legitimate currency, you accept it. That's what fungibility is. But in the Bitcoin world, we have centralized exchanges, and your ability to enter into the system is attached to KYC laws, know your customer, right? And so there's situations where you can end up with a Bitcoin that the traditional economy won't accept, because it's considered dirty money. And it might not even be your fault at all. You just happen to end up with that Bitcoin via a chain of things. And so the fungibility promise isn't fully fulfilled. The second one is stability. Bitcoin is obviously rapidly rising, but to be able to use it in everyday life, we've talked about Lightning Network, there's great innovation on this, but the question is, can we create a currency that's even more stable than Bitcoin and is complementary to Bitcoin? And so this is where the idea of Silk was born. As long as there are multiple currencies in the world, or even multiple assets, you can have a currency that is pegged to an index of assets. And this is ultimately a more stable currency than any single asset ever could be. That's the dream. That's the vision. A currency that is an index of other currencies, other commodities. You essentially create a global currency that is more stable than anything else, including Bitcoin. And I'd like to say Bitcoin within this narrative still has a massive story and plays a hugely important role. But in everyday life, having that currency with that stability makes sense. That in order to have institutional investors, enterprises be fully integrated into decentralized applications, there has to be a network where you have privacy by default, but you have the ability to decrypt your own transactions, be auditable, be compliant. In the current banking system, you don't want the entire world to know everyone you transact with. And so with the current state of Web3, there is more privacy in the old financial system than with the new financial system. And we just don't believe fundamentally that's sustainable. Silk's auditable, it's fast, it's cheap, it's programmable. All of this, Silk can 100% interact with decentralized finance. It can interact with smart contracts. A lot of other stablecoins out there, they don't necessarily fully have that ability, and Silk can be cross-chain. So I want to briefly speak to the evolution of stablecoins, because the stablecoin industry is an $85 billion industry right now, and that has sprung up all in the last 2, 3, 4 years. We've seen insane growth. And it started with Tether, the first digital stablecoin. And what Tether is you got this cryptocurrency out there, it's one-to-one with the US dollar, but it's all contingent upon a bank being out there somewhere that says every Tether is one-to-one backed by $1 sitting in that bank account. It's not a good system. It's centralized. You have to trust that third party somewhere out there. And it brings in all of the old pieces of the financial system we're not really a huge fan of. And so then DAI came along. It's the first ever decentralized stablecoin. It's backed by collateral. So you put up, let's say, $150 worth of collateral, and you mint out $50 worth of a stablecoin. And that stablecoin, because it's backed by over collateral, we know it's safe to use. We know the value is stable. The problem with this setup, though, is the only way to introduce new currency into the system puts everyone in a leveraged position, right? You have to lock up value and mint something out. You're in a leveraged position by default. And so what we found with DAI is during contractionary events or expansionary events with price, the system wasn't reflexive enough. It wasn't reactive enough. So DAI did a decent job, but its architecture was just kind of shoddy. It's not good enough with large market movements. This is where Terra USD came in, $15 billion protocol. They came up with an idea of an algorithmic peg, and this is based off of free market arbitrage that pushes the price of your stablecoin back to a target price. And I'll explain those mechanics in like 1 or 2 slides, I promise. But with Terra, because it's its own protocol level thing, there is inflation involved to incentivize the actual node runners, stakers, architecture to happen. And it's all block-based inflation, and we wanted to avoid a system we wanted to reduce the amount of inflation with any system that was created, fundamentally. And I think Bitcoin people understand the argument against inflation maybe more than anyone on the planet right now, if there's any audience that gets it. So what's Silk? Algorithmically pegged. It's backed by Treasury and collateral in the near future with a product on the horizon attached to Silk that'll plug in, and it has no block-based inflation. That's kind of the improvement from Terra. And we consider it a 4th generation stablecoin, and it has privacy. I'm just going to jump right through here, actually. We'll just jump to the next one. We'll get straight to, we kind of already talked about the feature set. Let's jump straight to the mechanics. We'll even jump through this. Secret network is the base layer. Like we said, that's the one that straddles the line where you have every user that uses Silk has a viewing key. They can decrypt their own transactions. This is great. It's the middle ground between Monero and total transparency. And we'll just jump through here to the mechanics. Because the mechanics are what make this its own beautiful system. Actually, you just jump to the, we'll just start here. We're going to start here. Yep. So, Silk. What happens when Silk is at $1.02 on the open market? It's not a good thing. If you want it to be targeting a target price, let's say we're using the US dollar, $1, you need a way for people to push the price back down to $1 with open market mechanics. And the way this works, if you want to jump to the next slide, we'll give them the full diagram. This is actually showing up way better than I thought. There's 3 tokens. You have Silk, the stablecoin, and Shade, which is the stabilizer token of this entire system. And what a user will do if Silk's ever trading at $1.02 is they have the ability, there's 2 contracts floating out there. It's immutable. Anyone in the world can interact with them. What a user will do, or what an institution will do, is they'll burn $1 worth of Shade for 1 Silk. Now here's the keynote. They've burned $1 worth for 1 Silk, and the market is valuing that Silk at $1.02. So what will they do? That user will immediately go and sell off the Silk for free arbitrage profits. And I'll say it one more time. Market's at $1.02. A user has an arbitrage opportunity where they convert $1 worth of Shade for a Silk that the market is saying is actually worth $1.02. This is mind-blowing stuff because you're essentially interacting with the minting contracts. Anyone in the world can do this. It's global participation in maintaining a price point. Inverse is also true. If we're ever at 98 cents, we want it back at $1. And the inverse arbitrage scenario happens where people can buy Shade at a discount and sell it on the open market. And the stuff that most algorithmic stablecoins won't tell you is in a contractionary event, the value that pushes it back to $1 has to come from somewhere, right? You can't just magically push that up unless there's something being drawn upon. And so in a contractionary event, you're pulling from the market capitalization of of Shade, which is the Treasury utility and stabilizer token. You're pulling on that market capitalization and you're pushing that into Silk to push it back to $1. And 3 and 4 are not brand new mechanics. Terra has done this before. This is not brand new mechanics, and it's a very reflexive and beautiful system. And so we innovated on top of 3 and 4 with the privacy, but also your entry into the system. We allow a burn-based entry. So what this means is someone with Bitcoin or Secret or Atom, name your cryptocurrency, will be able to burn $100 worth of Secret for 100 Silk, or $100 worth of Secret for Shade. So we have this burn-based entry. The only token expansionary part of the system is based off of the open market's willingness to burn and push value into the system. There's no just inflation for no reason. The supply, the expansion of the entire system is 100% based off of how much value you're willing to burn into the system. And synthesis is this beautiful treasury address. Now, Bitcoin crew probably won't be as familiar with the idea of governance, and that's okay. But essentially, Shade holders, anyone holding Shade, gets to vote on what the Treasury does. Decentralized, democratized Treasury usage. And that's incredible because we can program synthesis to help resolve the peg. So there's ever a peg disparity, people can vote to push value into the system and force Silk back to its target price. You can have synthesis go and become a liquidity provider on an exchange, and shade holders will all benefit from this. So there's lots of reflexive mechanics with shade protocol that are unbelievably exciting, and this is just the base architecture. There's going to be products one day coming off of Silk with the synthetics market one day. We have an automated arbitrage system that retail investors can deposit capital into, and that capital will then go and interact with 3 and 4 for you, and you'll passively earn those arbitrage profits. So this is DeFi. It's crazy fun stuff. And Silk, our dream for Silk is that everyday people will be able to use Silk when you go to the store, whether it be in DeFi. And because it's pegged to a basket of global currencies, we believe Silk will be the most stable asset on the planet, ultimately. Let's jump through here. And just back to synthesis. Simple mechanics, as people burn into the system, as the peg is maintaining itself with institutional investors, retail investors, the open market mechanics that will automatically execute free arbitrage because they want free money to maintain the target price. As this treasury grows, there'll be tokens on the balance sheet. It could be secret, it could be ETH, Shade, Silk, Bitcoin. And we really view this treasury as something that continues to grow over time. And the more value that's on this treasury that's governed by the decentralized system, the more flexibility this community has to solve problems, to grow new products, to do interesting, wildly interesting things in the world of DeFi as a collective group and community. It's an experiment. It's a crazy experiment. We'll go next. This is another fundamental thing we're incorporating in our protocol. It's different from Terra. This one hit me at 4 a.m. At 4 a.m. one night, I was thinking about stability of the system, and it goes something like this. If you want to say in protocol governance, you must be willing to help maintain the peg. You must be willing to take on some level of risk to help stabilize the protocol and realize the rewards of being a shade holder. So if you go back a single slide here, shade holders will have the opportunity to earn arbitrage profits, but if you want to vote on these governance proposals, you have to, essentially your shade gets locked into a contract that is passively maintaining the peg. So if we have hundreds of millions of dollars staked with people that want to participate in governance, potentially the Treasury can give out a dividend one day. As this Treasury grows, we can vote and have dividends being sent out to shade holders, right? So it's this reflexive system of growth. And we are fundamentally integrating the peg stabilization into every single shade holder that wants to be rewarded for being a shade holder. No one's done this before. You have to be part of maintaining the stability of the system to benefit from the system. And we think it's a beautiful series of statements. So next slide. Going. Why Silk? The burn-based entry is radical because it's a no slippage entry into the system. You'll also be able to earn LP rewards on all those decentralized exchanges for anyone that was a part of the DeFi talk earlier. Maybe you heard about liquidity providing. It's a stable asset, and you earn peg arbitrage profits for everyday people. And this is the front end. We are on testnet. These contracts are being tested. This isn't theoretical. This isn't just a white paper. This is in 2017 where people say, give us millions of dollars based off this paper. We're just going to build it. We're just going to do it, ultimately. And we're unbelievably excited to unveil this to the DeFi world. A little bit of front end. Still some work to be done in terms of user experience and all this stuff. And the reason, part of the excitement of being at Bitcoin conferences is like, what does this relate to Bitcoin? Right? This is its own network. It's doing its unique thing, this global stable cryptocurrency. We're also announcing today Shinobi Bridge. So there is going to be a direct bridge from Bitcoin wallets straight onto the network that has Silk and Shade and all these things. Direct bridge. It's a secured trustless bridge based off of a hash verification system. If you're interested, you can learn more by reading the white paper. But we're bringing secret network and secret DeFi straight to Bitcoin holders. And I know there's been some talk of maybe a Bitcoin layer 3, a smart contract platform that's multiple layers up. But I see a world where people just build bridges directly to Bitcoin. And it's up to the end user and the free market to decide where value is going to be pushed to, ultimately. You can have your thesis on where things are headed, but the market's going to decide how much decentralization are they willing to sacrifice for utility? How much privacy are they willing to sacrifice for utility? And we're all a part of the first generation to be able to openly experiment with currency in a way we've never seen before. And I'm unbelievably excited to see where things go with Shade, Silk, Bitcoin, all of this blockchain community that's ultimately trying to decentralize and radically overhaul finance and the legacy systems as we know it. Little sneak preview here. Fun little graphic, that was their marketing team, fun stuff. We'll show, I think they're working on their front end, mobile and whatnot with how this Bitcoin to Secret Network gateway will happen, but it's gonna be a seamless experience with a confirmation-based system with hashing. And it's a two-way bridge, so you can go Bitcoin to Secret Bitcoin. Oh, and by the way, when you go from Bitcoin to Secret Bitcoin, your Bitcoin now has that programmable privacy I was talking about, so your transactions have privacy by default as opposed to being a completely transparent system. And the end dream is you can take your Bitcoin to the Secret Network ecosystem. You got your Secret Network version of Bitcoin. And you can go interact with NFTs. Maybe you've heard about all that hype. Careful with that. It's fun stuff, though. But you could go mess around with NFTs. You can earn passive DeFi LP rewards by offering up your Bitcoin to these decentralized exchanges, and you earn passive revenue for being a liquidity provider. The ROI on some of this stuff is crazy high. We're talking somewhere between 50 to like 100%. Careful, there's risk involved with all these things, but it's the world of DeFi. You'll be able to burn into Silk. You'll be able to buy Silk. You don't have to burn for Silk. You'll be able to buy Shade. And Secret Network and ultimately Shade Protocol, we have a series of privacy-preserving products that are all going to be connected to each other that all build value for Shade. And the more value we build for Shade, the more stable Silk is. And the more usable Silk will be to the global environment and global community. So that is Shinobi. And where are we at for time? I think that's the last slide. Check out Secret Network. We're at 22 minutes, so we've got 8 minutes left. I'd be happy to take any and all questions at this point.
Everybody here thinks that the dollar is basically going to zero. So, like, at some point, does your USD peg change? Or?
Yes. So this is why the idea of a stablecoin is complementary to Bitcoin. Let's say Bitcoin is taking up 80% of the world's global volume on a daily basis. Suddenly, your peg can have 80% of Silk's values derived from Bitcoin, and the other 20% is from the baskets of other currencies and assets. Silk is essentially trying to mirror currency as a closed system. And when you do that, when you create that, you have a currency that is more stable than if you're in just one of those single assets. You are diversifying your way. You're diversifying the risk away, but all you have to do is be in that single currency. So, yeah, good question.
I see with that though is if you have a basket of currencies initially, then you are not a store of value. You're stable potentially, but you're not a store of value.
Mm-hmm.
You add assets into there like a Bitcoin or there's something else, then suddenly you become more store of value.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're less stable.
Yep.
So you're trying to sell it that it's a store of value and stable, where right now you can't really have both.
Yeah, it's an interesting hybrid, and ultimately it will be up to Shade holders in this decentralized community to determine what set of properties do we ultimately want the endpoint to be. We always like to say the best decision you can make is the one you let the decentralized community make. So you are correct. You can't be everything at once. And so it's going to be up to the community to decide, do we want this to be more of a store of value or more of a place of stability? And my gut instinct says Bitcoin is amazing at store of value. So be as focused as possible on being a stable currency. And that will be the massive amount of utility that it can bring to the table, that Bitcoin, within its volatility, within its narrative as a store of value, can't necessarily fully fulfill, and it wasn't necessarily even designed to fully fulfill that. So good point.
So Bitcoin is as prominent as it is because of one of the first cryptocurrencies out there to do what it does. And,
Yep.
You can take the same algorithm to code and do the same thing, but it doesn't have the name recognition. So similarly, Luna being far longer than the other algorithm, stablecoins
Yep.
out there. What gets you guys, or what differentiates you? I know you touched on a little bit from USD, Terra USD,
Yep.
and Luna, and what they do algorithmically and haven't been
Yep.
out there for over a year.
So the burn-based entry is completely unique. No one's done that. It's access into the system with a value capture mechanism. Whereas Terra has inflation only pushed towards people that are securing the protocol. So I always want to be really careful with this because I believe there needs to be an ecosystem of stablecoins. Like I don't think it should be one stablecoin to rule them all. Every system has risks, right? And so we should strive as a crypto community to have connected systems. Everyone inherits their own types of risk. But the burn-based entry is totally unique. The programmable privacy. Secret Network is the only tech stack that can do that right now. You're either completely private or you're completely transparent. No one has been able to ride the middle ground. It was an MIT group since 2014. They spent 6-7 years researching it. It's only been live for a year. And so the application layer is completely nascent. You see, I mean, some of these people are some of the first people that are building. It's cutting edge of cutting edge, right? So we're beginning to discover what that means. So the privacy, the burn-based entry, and the other thing is Terra, they're launching all sorts of DeFi products, but they all launch under their own new token, right? Oh, I'm launching this product, I'm launching this product, I'm launching this product. And a lot of it, I think, is based in greed. Everyone's trying to have their own DeFi product and have their own token and create a sustainability model for their own developer team for that specific product. The downside of that is as you launch all these separate products, you're really diluting the value that can be gathered under one protocol system. So with Shade Protocol, as we launch all these products, there's not going to be new tokens for each one. They're all going to have reflexive feedback mechanisms that grow the value of Shade. And when you grow the value of Shade, Silk becomes even more stable. So I think Terra, what they did as an experiment was brilliant, but I think there could have been longer term thinking with how they incorporate even the idea of we're incorporating arbitrage into being a shareholder out of the gates. For them, that's optional. We're not doing that. We are, if you're partaking in the system, you're helping stabilize the peg. So there's other product reveals that I don't want to put out there yet. This is a drastically simplified presentation, but if you want to know more, I can give you all the information you want, PDF-wise, anything follow-up-wise. Happy to chat about it. But does that answer it enough-ish? Okay. Any other questions?
How are you building the open source community?
Yeah, it's a good question. So back end for all of this is completely open source. So everyone can see the code. It's not going to be private. It's completely public. I firmly believe you should never interact with a smart contract that isn't open sourced, right? That's a black box. Someone can design it to do anything. You're sending money to essentially a vending machine that you don't know what's happening inside of the vending machine. You don't know what's going to pop back out at you. So backend's fully open sourced. In terms of growing the open source community, we're already seeing it. We have 12 plus people. No one's full time. This is just a group of people that are coming together, and we'd like for there to be a sustainability model. I won't lie, we're looking for funding. Like it's all part of like the story of trying to build something that's going to change the world. But if you want to see an open source community grow, start with a place where people are up till 5 a.m. after their day job because they're so excited about what we're building. And we're going to continue to strive to pull people in and say, hey, it's DeFi, but it doesn't have privacy. You want to build Web3 the right way. You want to do it with privacy by default, come to Secret Network. We will give you all the onboarding materials. We will teach you anything. Please come build here because Web3 needs privacy. So, great question. And I think, oh, yeah, one more, go for it.
Just kind of follow up with the question I had in the last session about the narrow and versus your stablecoin, where you got the narrow on the one side.
Yep.
You said you kind of get in the middle where you have the key.
Yep.
That's great for you, and that's great. But that's still not great. Probably going to be great for the regulators because they're still going to be like, if I don't play ball with the regulators, then they can't see the transactions.
Sure.
And so they're going to have a hard time, I would think, something like this getting any sort of traction for the same reason like Monero's not gotten a lot of traction. It has, but it's not mainstream. And because the regulators are still going to want to not have that privacy because it's still 100% private, like you said, unless you have that key. And I'm the only one that has that key.
Yep. But I think what you're bringing to the table, though, I think it is a narrative. And there are many narratives at play here with regulators and privacy. I think a lot of the narrative that's emerged is privacy is dangerous. privacy is hiding. But fundamentally, we will not be able to have institutional and enterprise investors in DeFi until smart contract metadata has some level of encryption. So you are correct. If regulators decide we're not going to play ball with something where they can be compliant, can be auditable, well then, in terms of the US, in terms of here, then maybe we're out of luck. But my gut instinct says, as we're starting to see with regulators, is they're looking at the completely transparent blockchains and they're saying, wait a minute, Facebook has more privacy than Ethereum or Bitcoin. Wait a minute, that's way too much transparency. So we'll see how it plays out. It's a fair criticism, and I'm excited to see how our legislators and the crypto community bands around the privacy ethos and narrative. We're so willing to give it up, and I'm afraid of the ramifications of that, not just from like a human rights standpoint, but also a utility standpoint. Privacy is utility, and people are going to discover that as we launch more products that are only possible with privacy. So, yeah. I think we're out of time. Thank you all for listening in so attentively. If you'd like to learn more, I would check out Secret Network and Shade Protocol on Twitter. Feel free to come and talk to me afterwards. Always happy to chat. Thank you.